The following program is a production of KHET in Honolulu, Hawaii Public Television.
The following program has been funded in part by grants from the Hawaii State Foundation on Culture and the Arts and the people of Chevron in Hawaii.
In the crisp, balmy breeze of early morning, Waikiki on the island of Oahu slumbers in the cool shadow of Diamond Head. Her famous cloak of resorts have offered visitors an interlude with a sun-drenched Pacific paradise since before the turn of the century. Such familiarity belies a distant past where royalty ruled over a thriving Hawaiian community and where the landscape of Waikiki flourished with lo'i, taro patches, local fish ponds, coconut trees, and thatched huts. In 1850, aliens were given the right to purchase land. Moneyed foreigners built lavish and privileged summer homes. They developed bathhouses and canoe sheds for their enjoyment. Soon the shoreline became a natural playground for the rich, and the glamour of Waikiki began. Access by public transportation prompted dramatic development which has transformed modern Waikiki into a world-famous destination.
My name is Chin Ho, born at Waikiki, 1904. Waikiki was the boondocks where we lived at that time. Life at that time is a contrast with life today. Waikiki is lined with hotels, and those were the days when we had our 3 schoolhouses. It was, although very pleasant, it was a pleasant atmosphere, and we really enjoyed it, enjoyed the discipline at the schools, and we had to put our hands in front of the desk, and if we don't, you find the yardstick gets on. There was very little beach activity then, except for the few surfers and few tourists we had in that area.
In the olden days, when I first started down at the beach, down at the Outrigger Canoe Club, I was young. I got in because of the old man John D. Capico, and being a top steersman in those days, for my age, like about 13, 14 years old, I was accepted by the big guys. And the old man let me take out the commercial loads when nobody around illegally. And finally, I got good enough and they licensed me. Then the Outrigger Canoe Club hired me. And here the guys, there you have all the big names, like Panama Dave, Charlie Amalo, Splash Lines, Steamboat, Curly Conwell, Turkey Love, all those big old-time guys, Blue McCoy Jr., and Joe Pang, Joe Akana. They were about the big name guys that in those days, plus the Kahanamokos, which, you know, everybody knows. And then in those days when we used to work, you only cater to mostly the rich, people coming off the boats. Met Sonia, Lurleen. They used to stay at the Royal. And then that's the kind of clientele we get, people with the money. And at the time when they leave, that's where you make your bucks. And they give you good tips, big tips. Nowadays, it's hard. They come down here on a package deal. They don't have money to spend. And you get the business here is just bad. The way you look at it now, it's almost at a standstill. I don't know how you can do it to put it up. Tourist Bureau, everything else, do something, but still, it's not feasible nowadays to be a beach boy. And a lot of the times now, and being a beach boy in this modern area, you have a lot of illegal guys guides that are not licensed trying to do the job that we are doing. And they're just like, you know, muscling in on the territory, the business. And being their friends, you don't want to kick the hell out of them guys. But I think the harbor board should do something because they are the ones that are licensing those people. And get down hard on them, get them out of there. And that's about, you know, the difference in the olden days. When in the olden days, you can do anything you want as long as you're within the rights and don't get in trouble. Trouble is like the older guys in my time, getting drunk at night, creating hell, raising Cain, which was normal. You get people like John Wayne and everybody come down, and boy, party, brawls and everything. That's their time. It was good. But now you don't find those kind of people. That's about it.
Waikiki. I sang that around here in 1938 for the first time. And now they're still singing it now in 1988, and they're still singing it in 1989 now, presently. And it's one of the most performed songs in Waikiki. Of all the musicians down there, everybody plays that at least once a night. And here's the song. And the thing about this is when I was in the mainland when I had written this, and we went up there during the summer, but then we got through the summer, and then came the autumn, and then came the start of winter, and oh boy, I mean, it was getting cold. So by the time we got to a place called Lansing, Michigan, it was about the middle of December already, and well, to those holidays, that wasn't so cold, but to us, they come to sit, they had snow on the ground and all kinds, and fog at night, oh, miserable weather. So right away, because of that, I told those guys in Lansing, you know, if I was in Hawaii right now, 10 o'clock at night, sometimes we go down Waikiki Beach and swim at 10 o'clock in the night. He said, what? December? I said, yeah, December, January, February, March, June, July, anytime. Because Hawaii, I told him, is always summer. In fact, the Hawaiian language don't have any words for winter or summer or autumn or spring. There's no words in Hawaiian language for that because they didn't need them. We have only one kind of season all year long. So, well, this is the way I felt when, you know, kind of homesick. Yeah. I've been put into a place where I'm not used to this kind of environment. Yeah. I was thinking strongly about Hawaii. And the reason I wrote about Waikiki is because Waikiki was the most famous Hawaiian word in the mainland at that time, at least in the central part, because they never heard of Hawaii then. But you mentioned Waikiki and everybody heard that. So here. Waikiki, at night when the shadows are falling, I hear your rolling surf calling, calling and calling to me. Waikiki, 'tis for you that my heart is yearning. My thoughts are always returning out there to you across the sea. Your tropic nights and your wonderful charms are ever in my memory. And I recall when I held in my arms an angel sweet and heavenly Waikiki. My whole life is empty without you. I miss that magic magic about you, magic beside the sea, magic of Waikiki.
My feeling of being a celebrity was just being a normal person and being myself. And I thought that if I went overboard and tried to be somebody I was not, it wouldn't be satisfying at all. To me, entertaining the public was sharing some of my knowledge and my ability to show the hula as it was danced properly, and singing the songs that we were taught by our kupuna, or our elders. The community of Waikiki is now more transit than when we were living there. The families have scattered. You don't have a big family living in Waikiki like we did. Every block we had 2 or 3, we say local families. Everybody knew everybody else. We always knew if there was a newcomer.
Well, I was too young to remember as a baby, but I was born in Kapiolani Hospital. And the first family home that they took me to, which I have pictures of, like this, little thing, was at Dewey Way, where the new Moana Hotel and now the Hawaiian Village now stand. And shortly after that, we moved to Kaimaki on Charles Street, where Leonard's Bakery is. And the place to go swimming was Sanssouci, without care, you know, without any problems. That's what it means. And the water there was very nice next to the natatorium, because the natatorium had already been built. And when you got a little older, then you went to Kuhio Beach with my father. And my uncle would come from the island of Kauai, where I'd spend the rest of my time, other than here in Honolulu growing up. But Waikiki then had the unique coffee shop, unique Hawaiian food shop across the street. And my grandfather, who was Chinese Hawaiian, would sit under those arbors where they played cribbage, or they played paiute, or they played kamau, trumps, something like that. And I knew that if I was a boy, if I walked by him, he would give me $1, which means I could go across the street and I could get shave ice at the unique coffee shop, or I could get lau, or maybe some pipi kaula to chew on the beach. So whenever we went to Kuhio Beach, I always went for a walk near my grandfather, because Chinese, the good luck, gambling, he'd give me the $1 so I could go. We were swimming once at Waikiki with an inflated tire, my uncle and I. And that area at Kuhio Beach where the breakwater has been built was up. And we went and we got there and we went over. And the tide started to change. So that inflated tire went further and further and further out. And we're young men, boys. So we don't know how deep it is because we're not accustomed to that water. Finally, we're getting panicky. So we both hung on and started to kick to get back to that place. He was a better swimmer than I because he comes from the island of Kauai, where he was taught by his friends and his uncles and his other older brothers. And I wasn't. So I swam, which seemed an interminable length, from that breakwater to the beach. And that's in those days, it got deeper in the middle, and then it got shallower as you got towards the shore. And there was a woman along the way, and I was swimming, so I grabbed on her and said, I'm drowning, I'm drowning. Well, she started to go under the water. I'm kicking. My father's lying down absorbing the sun on the beach. Daddy, Daddy! My uncle is swimming, and he gets to the water, gets to the shore. Well, finally, I made it. But I never thought I'd see the shore of Waikiki ever again.
The Moana is special because it's the first resort hotel in Waikiki. It was a risky venture, as it was stated in the newspaper accounts at the time. It was a business venture, essentially, to come to an area that had no resort development per se. There were, and I'm not historically accurate on what Waikiki was in 1901, but I know there were summer homes, summer palaces, large estates. There were some rooming houses, I believe. I don't know how else to define them, but not a true resort hotel as the Moana is now. The architect came from the mainland, brought mainland styles and ideas that were currently in fashion at the time. So it is built in the style of other structures. It's built in wood, and I have come across some newspaper accounts that indicate that some of structures of this size would possibly have been built in other materials on the mainland. Why it was built in wood and why, I'm not sure. The goal of the renovation is a long-term product. Let's put it that way. I don't think anyone can say how long. I'm not sure that there's some people that are surprised it was able to stand 88 years of weathering and alteration and so on. It's a pretty remarkable wooden structure, actually. Well, this hotel is unique in Waikiki. It's historic. It has a historic facade, classical proportions, large windows, no lanais, except what you see along the beachfront in the center section. It has a non-repetitive exterior appearance, which makes it very unique from the contemporary hotels in Waikiki. I hope when the hotel reopens and the public is able to go through it, that they'll be pleased to see the hotel as it was in 1901 and the adaptation of the site, today's site, to the proportions of the original.
Well, my first memory and my still continuing memory of Waikiki is a place of fun. I grew up in Kaimaki, which was just a stone's throw up from Waikiki. And when we were young, the thing we did on weekends or after school was to go swimming. And in those days, Waikiki Beach was not as crowded as it is today. Certainly the tourism industry 30 plus years ago did not have the kind of volume and the busyness and the commercial aspect that it does today. And as a result, a lot of time that we spent swimming was in Waikiki Beach. It was great fun all the time. It was inexpensive fun. The whole neighborhood where I grew up with in Kaimaki used to come to Waikiki right down Montserrat Avenue. That aspect hasn't changed at all. Montserrat remains the same. The type of fun that people have today seem to be more sophisticated than it was in our days. Our days, it was very basic. Having very little money to spend, it was done either in sports or in swimming, surfing, etc. It seems like the young people of today want to spend their time doing more things that cost more money. In those days also, we spent a lot of time with people from other schools, meeting them on the beach, the YMCA. I was an active member of the YMCA, and I spent many of my days down at the old Moana YMCA, and that's where I first learned to swim. And I met lots of kids from other schools and from other neighborhoods. Today, I notice that our sons and daughters have a tendency to be very parochial in spending their time with just a small group of people from their own schools or from their own peer group. And I think that's a mistake. I think the broader one can expand oneself, and swimming on the beach and getting to know them, such as Waikiki Beach, that to me was a lot of fun and still is a lot of fun. And I want to carry that thought straight to the present day. I never expected that I would be working within a stone's throw from Waikiki Beach, but here I am 30 years later doing that. And I view Waikiki today as a place that connotes activity, fun, relaxation at the same time. A place where one can come and find entertainment and good dining, where one can also meet an awful lot of people from all over the world. The world has come to Hawaii and to Waikiki. Waikiki is actually the starting point for many people's vacations, regardless of whether they like the outer islands as a favorite spot to visit. Generally, it all starts or ends here. I recall when I first came on this job that there was some apprehension from some of the Waikiki people, the hotels and what have you, that because there were direct flights from the coast to the neighbor islands, that would somehow bypass Waikiki. But we have found through our experience that generally, if they go directly to the neighbor islands for quiet relaxation, they sort of yearn for a little bit of activity, a little bit more action than can be found elsewhere. And so they come to Waikiki for the final part of their vacations before they go back to where they came from. So Waikiki still remains the center of attention of the visitor industry, and I foresee that it always will be. Whether we like it or not, Waikiki sort of just grew by leaps and bounds. It was not obviously a planned community. And from that aspect, if we could do it over again, obviously we would like to see it done differently. Sort of a helter-skelter, unplanned growth. But it has also been helpful to other planned resort areas such as Kaanapali, such as Waikoloa, such as Wailea and Kapalua, to plan better the way they have set out their facilities, and to plan better access to the sea and to the beaches, as versus what we have here in Waikiki, where you have a solid group of hotels blocking off certain accesses to the beach. I think I was asked the question once, if I had a wish for Waikiki, what would I wish? Well, my answer remains the same. I would wish that there would have been no building of any kind seaside of Kalakaua Avenue, that from point to point it would all have been left wide open. Park setting, beaches, wide beaches, where the local community as well as the tourists could have easy access and ready access to the beach. Because I think that visitors who come really do sometimes yearn to have a contact with the local community, and vice versa. I think the local community sort of views Waikiki now, as versus during my day, as a place that's reserved for the visitor, which it should not be. I would like to see more communication and more coming together to use all the facilities that are available.
The future, though, is something else. I always found and find Waikiki, with its buildings and its mosaic of people, extraordinarily interesting. People think it's ugly. I think it's a work of art. I think if you lie on the beach, it's all artificial beach anyway, it's all brought in sand, brought in palm trees, everything around here is utterly artificial. Waikiki was a swamp, we drained it all. You're sitting right this very minute on a place called, that was at one time an island, McKee Island. If you understand that it's strictly built for human purpose, and that it's gone through tremendous changes over the last 200 years, over the last 20 or 30 years that I've been here and seen it, it's easy to speculate about some of the changes in the future. I think that building materials, building styles will certainly change, and we will marvel at the repetition that is part of modern 20th century building, where every floor looks exactly alike. That particular capability is a rather new capability. Can you imagine what Waikiki would have looked like 100 years ago, 200 years ago? What people would have thought? How can they make all these buildings that look exactly alike? How can they have every floor be like every other floor? This is a style of architecture that was unprecedented in the past, and which you won't find again, as new architectural styles, probably more flexible, more fluid, become characteristic of the technologies of the 21st century and beyond. So we better preserve this as an incredible monument to history. Also, when I think about the future, I mentioned McKee Island. This is liable to be an island again. The future of Waikiki is probably underwater. I think it's almost certain that the one of the major things that we're going to have to deal with in the world, every country, every place, but very important in Hawaii, extremely important here, is sea level rise due to the greenhouse effect, the melting of the polar ice caps, the rise of water. What we'll do about it here, whether we will choose to try to dam it and prevent the water from rising, or whether we'll simply let the water come in and maybe make a Venice out of it so that we'll be poling around the water, and maybe this 7th floor apartment will be much closer to the water then than it is now, or whether we'll simply give the whole thing up and move on the other side of, well, what's now the Alawai Canal, but might be the Alawai, I don't know, shorefront at the time. I don't know, but we have some major challenges and changes ahead. I don't think Waikiki will look anything like this within 50 to 100 years, the way it looks now. It'll be quite different. How about the ozone, the hole in the ozone layer that is growing over the Earth as a result of human activities? If that hole continues to grow, and if we can't find a way to reverse it, as it appears to be, one of the consequences of that will be, I'm certain, a decline in sun-based tourism. Why will people want to go out in the sun if all that will do is increase their skin cancer? So I think that we better look at and enjoy Waikiki in its present form as fast as we can. It's not likely to stay in this form much longer.
Well, I wish I was a prophet and I could see that far ahead, 100 years, but not being a prophet, my one hope is that they will not, no matter if there's not one single Hawaiian in Hawaii in 100 years from now, the thing that I would like for the population at that time to remember is to remember all the good traits of the Hawaiian personalities, Hawaiian customs, to be friendly to everybody, no matter, even if you don't know them. You know, over here, even if you don't know the tourists here, aloha, you know, and how are you? You like your visit and all that. I wish that would be retained, no matter which group of people become dominant in Hawaii. I wish they'd be smart enough to retain that kind of a personality for Hawaii forever. Honika ua wiki wiki, sweet brown man.